next day, on the southern coast of the Çeşme Peninsula, we were greeted by a beautiful morning. Cloudless skies, calm weather, and sunshine. Our spot was located right here, and since getting there wasn't easy and the space was very limited, the beach was ours alone. From above, it may look like a paradise. Turquoise, crystal clear water, sandy slopes, and a wide beach, but don't be fooled. Up close, it didn't look quite so fantastic. We had already experienced the difficulty, if not the near impossibility, of swimming the previous evening. The seabed was covered in large and smaller rocks coated in seaweed that form a slippery layer with barely any traction. On top of that, many of the rocks were encrusted with sharp-shelled sea creatures that could easily cause cuts. And in the evening, we even spotted sea urchins hiding between the stones. So wading into the water looked exactly like this. A relaxing swim here was simply out of the question. That's why, taking advantage of the calm of the morning and the natural surroundings, I decided to get some practice flying my FPV drone. And I have to say, I was starting to get the hang of it.
I've got that rhythm, don't you feel it too? I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I love every moment with you, and I want you to know I do. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive.
Feeling more confident, I began flying lower, faster, and even attempted some maneuvers that required a bit of piloting precision. Aside from the limited field of view in the goggles, which sometimes made it hard to figure out where I was, forcing me to make some sharp course corrections, I even decided to try flying right through the middle of our awning. Wait for it. You have to admit, Marta's composure is admirable. She didn't even flinch as I zipped right past her, just smiled slightly. After a slow-paced morning, we hit the road shortly after noon. After 2.5 hours, we arrived here. And this is the threshold of a place once frequented by none other than Alexander the Great and Hannibal. Heraclitus lived here. This is also where Mark Antony is said to have his first rendezvous with Queen Cleopatra. We're at the lower gate of the ancient city of Ephesus. The site has two main entrances. Technically, it's recommended to start from the upper gate, as it lets you explore the site walking downhill. But we are entering from the port side, as ancient travelers would have. At first, we're greeted by a relatively unmarkable part of the site, a small collection of milestones, which in ancient times were used to mark distances between cities along Roman roads. Next, we move among stone pumps. These are examples discovered during excavations both within Ephesus and on its outskirts. Ephesus was one of the most important centers of producing semi-finished sarcophagi decorated with garland motifs. The most distinctive elements were the lower pedestals that projected outward and were adorned with small garland decorations. The lid of the sarcophagus was shaped like a very low pitch roof, often featuring small acroteria. Ephesus is considered the largest and best preserved ancient city in the eastern Mediterranean, located on the western coast of modern-day Turkey. It's said to be the most visited archaeological site in the country, though we didn't encounter any overwhelming crowds during our visit. It played a major role in the development of Christianity. The Apostle Paul lived and preached here, and his letter to the Ephesians was written in this very place. The city is also associated with Saint John the Evangelist, who, according to tradition, cared for Mary, the mother of Jesus, until her death. The house of the Virgin Mary is located just a few kilometers from the ruins. You're now looking at the Church of the Virgin Mary, the first church in the world dedicated to the Mother of Christ. It was built between the 2nd and the 4th centuries of the site of the early Roman basilica. It was here, in the year 431, that the Third Ecumenical Council was held, during which the title of Mary as the Mother of God was officially confirmed. Only fragments of this remarkable church have survived to the present day, but one of them is this well-preserved baptistery, located in an annex where baptism ceremonies were once held. The Church of the Virgin Mary is one of the key sites in Ephesus, attracting visitors interested in Christian history and ancient architecture. As you probably noticed, it was hard to miss. After my swim in the sea, my 360 camera started having trouble stitching the two halves of the image together. It seems it must have gotten wet. Maybe I didn't fully seal the pores after charging the battery, it's hard to say, but that's likely what happened since I've submerged it before without any issues. Fortunately, I also had my regular camera with me, so here are a few shots without those annoying artifacts. Still part of the Church of the Virgin Mary. Let's move on. Ephesus is a place that amazes not only with its rich history, shaped by civilizations such as the ancient Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Seleucids, but also with its truly stunning ruins. Founded in the 11th century BCE, Ephesus is over 3,500 years old. It began as a Greek city, then passed into Lydian and Persian hands before falling under Alexander the Great influence in the 4th century BCE. Its golden age came during Roman times, 1st and 2nd century CE, when it became the capital of Asia Minor, concentrating trade and finance for the region. At its peak, Ephesus had a population of around 250,000, making it one of the largest cities in the Roman Empire. Looking back, I definitely recommend visiting this city with a guide if you want to truly absorb its history. Many of the places we passed through had no descriptions at all, so a guide's knowledge could really deepen the experience. At least we had the advantage of using modern technology, which allows us to peek into places like this one that are normally off limits to the average tourist. Ephesus was famous for the temple of Artemis, Artemision, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It measured 137 meters in length, 69 meters in width, and featured over 120 columns, each 18 meters high. Today, not a single stone remains in its original place, except for one symbolic column assembled from unearthed fragments. One of the city's main monuments is undoubtedly the Library of Celsus, the most famous and most photogenic building in Ephesus. It is the city's symbol and one of the best preserved examples of library architecture in the entire Roman Empire. It was built around 110–135 CE by Gaius Julius Aquila and is said to have housed 12,000 to 15,000 parchment scrolls. It also served as a tomb, since Celsus himself was buried in a sarcophagus beneath the floor of the main hall. The facade is 2 stories high, adorned with Corinthian and Ionic columns, and richly decorated with statues of female personifications of virtues. Here we pass under the gate of Mazeus and Mithridates, built by these 2 former slaves in honor of Emperor Octavian Augustus, who granted them freedom. The gate features 3 vaulted passageways, and the vault facing the Library of Celsus is lined with black marble. Another major landmark is the Great Theatre, the largest public building in Ephesus. Built on the slope of the mountain, it could hold 24,000 to 25,000 spectators and was used not only for dramatic performances and concerts but also for public debates and gladiators' fights. To this day, it impresses with its natural acoustics. Concerts are still held here with performances by artists like Diana Ross, Sting and Elton John. Next, we move to the Curetes Street, the grand avenue leading all the way to the upper agora. In ancient times, extended even farther, reaching the temple of the Artemis. Besides its ceremonial role, it also served as the city's main thoroughfare. On both sides of the street were shops, fountains, and colonnades. Near the upper agora stands the Odeon, a small theater built in the 2nd century AD that could seat 1,500 to 2,000 people. It served as a venue for political meetings and social events. The building had 2 stories and was originally covered with a wooden roof. The seating was divided into 2 sections by a circular walkway known as the diazoma. The lower rows were reserved for the most important citizens, as indicated by the wider seats, while the narrower seats in the upper levels were occupied by less affluent townspeople. Historically, Ephesus was governed by the Boulea, or Senate, which acted as the city's advisory council. The Odeon served as the meeting place for this powerful body. Its members were chosen from the aristocratic class and held full political, executive, religious, and judicial authority. They oversaw the construction of all public buildings, temples, theaters, and baths, and were also responsible for collecting taxes and managing public infrastructure. Along the Curetes Street, we pass countless remarkable monuments. The Trajan's fountain you've just seen, built in the 2nd century AD, is just one example. The sheer number of architectural details, sometimes hidden, sometimes emerging from dense ruins, is overwhelming. Their abundance sparks the imagination, inviting us to reconstruct the former grandeur of Ephesus. Richly decorated columns, friezes, mosaics, and marble facades form a mosaic of the past, where every element tells its own story. Once lively streets, now immersed in silence, still radiates majesty. Walking along Curetes Street, one can truly feel the spirit of this former imperial metropolis, a city that once dazzled with its wealth, culture, and architectural scale. It is often said that if Ephesus hadn't been buried but sealed from its port and lost access to the sea, it might today be one of the world's greatest cities. After a day full of impressions spent among ancient ruins, we set off in search of a place to spend the night. Tomorrow morning, I'm picking up the drone from the repair shop in Izmir, so we need to find something relatively nearby. And since this is a very touristy area, it seemed like it might not be easy. But it turned out to be simpler than we thought. After just under 23 kilometers, we were already at the beach. We had actually found the spot earlier, the place where we decided to take a shower. And that shower, well, ended up sparkling our first argument. It was one of those arguments that often happen because of growing tension. A few things had piled up, mostly related to things breaking or not working as planned, and eventually something just snapped. In Poland, there's a kind of situational joke we use in these moments, because the water was too salty. Well, that's exactly it. The water was too salty for my water pump, and I lost it. My fault. The next morning, I took a dip in the sea, this time in a place far more suitable for swimming than the one you saw at the previous spot. But to do that, I had to walk quite a distance as the shallow seabed stretched dozens of meters into the sea. However, the seabed here was just like we have in Poland, Smooth, fine sand. No rocks, neither big nor small. Just a dream beach. Definitely the kind of a place where you can truly relax. But unfortunately, we had to move on. At 11:20, we arrived to the DJI Service Center in Izmir. There, we were presented with the results of the repair and we could once again enjoy the prospect of capturing shots from a bird's eye view. We left Izmir just before 1:30 p.m., heading east, and after about 35 kilometers, we turned south.
A single voice in a big crowd, amplified 1,000 times to make it loud. We can be whatever we wanna be, we can make our dreams. Won't let the past replay again. Remember there's more of us than there are of them. We can do whatever needs to be done, it's a battleground. On the streets and in the air, there's electricity. I feel it now, it's everywhere, it's obvious to see.
We made a stop on the outskirts of the village of Armutlu, where we found a place to stock up drinking water. We filled up all our tanks, including the nearly 60-liter one built into the wheel arch, which water level can be monitored from this panel. While the pump, the same one I used for the shower, was filling the tank, Marta kept an eye on the water level to avoid overflow. I love stumbling upon places like this during a journey, where you get to witness the simple day life of the locals. Some come here for water, others to wash a rug, rinse a car window, or simply to have a drink or cool off. A quick snapshot of everyday life that adds vibrant color to trips like this. Then we enter the mountains. The crossing was supposed to be relatively straightforward, but it turned out that the 30-kilometer stretch took us 3 hours. We hit several dead ends, we had to reverse out of the trail unexpectedly, shifted directions more than once, sending us off course, and several times the GPS led us toward impassable terrain, forcing us to find alternative routes. Yes, this is me checking out a steep ascent that, according to the GPS, we were supposed to take.
Yeah, that's clear. Brought you marble. It's a perfect gravestone.
Prawie jak diament.
This is Dracunculus, also known as the dragon lily, one of the most fascinating and unusual plants of the Mediterranean region. It looks beautiful, but smells like rotting meat. We finally reach a somewhat proper track, one that looks like it sees a bit more use, and this is the very first shot from the repaired drone. This time we take off in a spot that feels safe. There are trees, sure, but at the comfortable distance. The tracked object is clearly visible and everything seems to be under control. Right now, we're in the Bayındır district of Izmir province, slowly starting to look for a place to spend the night. The landscape here is mountainous and officially belongs to the Marmara region, but in reality, it feels much more like the Anatolian foothills rather than northern Marmara we know. Rolling hills, thick forests, deep gullies, and small hidden settlements nested in the trees. Peace, greenery, and just a small cultivated fields scattered across the blanket of forest. At one point, we hit a narrow asphalt road leading from Osmanlar to Bansilar, a small village clinging to the hillside, sitting at an altitude of about 500 to 700 meters. As you can see, the road isn't wide, and passing a track here was a bit risky. We climbed the twisting serpentine bands up toward the village, and once through it, we rejoined an unpaved track, one that gives us a beautiful view back down the route we've just climbed. The area slowly begins to bathe in the warm tones of the setting sun. Crimson light, like glowing dust, settles only on the higher hills, making their slopes look as though they caught fire. In this dimming, quieting landscape, we stop for the night. We pick a spot on one of the ridges, simply pulling over at the edge of the track we've been following. The path doesn't look heavily traveled, and even if it is, we've left enough space for anyone to get around us. And just like that, another day comes to an end, quietly, slowly, wrapped in golden light and the earthy scent of warm ground. The morning starts with a curiosity. At some point, I noticed a round crater in the ground, and every now and then clumps of dirt and small stones were being tossed out of it. As I got closer, I spotted some kind of a horned creature, frantically clearing out its little tunnel with its powerful movements. Just look how far it could fling even the largest stones. Mornings on journeys like this have something truly special about them. Each day, you wake up in a different place. One day on a mountain pass, the next in a valley where the greenery still hides in shadow, waiting for the sun's first light. You open the car door, step aside, and before you even think about what the day will bring, you're surrounded by silence. The kind of silence that's nearly impossible to find elsewhere. No distant voices, no buzz of civilization, just a soft breeze and the gentle warmth of the morning sun. Breakfast tastes different when you eat it with a view that never repeats. A mug of coffee, a fold-out table, and simple ritual made meaningful by the setting. These mornings carry a slowness that can't be scheduled. There's time to breathe, to reflect, to quietly prepare for what's ever ahead, because every day brings a new road, new obstacles, new moments of awe. Speaking of new obstacles, this morning gave no hint of what was to come. We finally set off just before 11, only to realize the road had taken us off course. After 4 kilometers, we had to turn back. We hadn't gone even 2 kilometers in a straight line from our campsite when we noticed a cleared path descending down the slope, heading exactly in the direction we wanted to go. To get a better idea of what we were dealing with, I launched the drone, a fairly standard recon flight. At first, the cut path seemed fairly gentle, but after a few dozen meters, it clearly started dropping more steeply. Drone footage usually flattens terrain and hides slopes, yet here, even from the air, it looked interesting. After another stretch, I saw an unpaved road running across the bottom. According to the map, this was the track we wanted to connect with, which made the cleared path look like the perfect shortcut. Unfortunately, I was already low behind the trees and the drone signal started to degrade fast. I couldn't descend lower without completely losing image and control. Still, from above, nothing seemed too problematic. So, at exactly 11:30, we began the descent. We covered a total of 164 meters at an average speed of 4 kilometers per hour. It took us 2.5 minutes. And around 11:33, that's when the real trouble began. But more on that in the next episode.